Dawid had slept through the Shabbat. After Gabriel and Luke had gotten his big body up the stairs and into bed, I had thanked them and sent them back to Yasmin, who I know was very sick about them, assuring them that I can handle the rest. I wrestled with his heavy limbs to get his clothes off and cleaned all the blood off of him. Simon had brought the bag I had prepared for us. In it was a pair of the jogging pants that Dawid wore for pajamas. After I got him clean, I put those on him. He was out. I wondered if he was still unconscious or just sleeping hard like he did the last time that light shined from his eyes. I gently rubbed his head and called his name. Nothing, not even an eye roll. The last time he had heard me, although he did appear to be sleeping hard. I looked down at his handsome face. He had X-ray hearing, if that was such a thing. Now that I wasn't blinded by anger anymore, I could see how unbelievably awesome that is. I was married to Superman. Nah, I take that back. Superman ain't got nothing on him. I was married to King Dawid, the son of a lion. I thought back to that imposter. As Gabriel was helping me get Dawid settled in, he told me a little bit about lying. He said the imposter was strong and fast, but he had nothing on the real lion. Gabriel said he had never met a man like him before. A great man, he called him. And he must have been, to sire such a son. I would have liked to have met him. After I got Dawid comfortable, I went to make sure Simon and his crew were situated. Although this place was not too far away from the compound, I didn't want to take any of the ox who had families. I didn't really know what the general was going to do, so I just took a few of the men with us and left the compound still heavily guarded. In a perfect world, the general would have taken his defeat and gone by his business. But I knew him. This only enraged him. He's a vain, vile, evil man. And if Yah gave me the strength, I was determined to kill him. I think I just might enjoy it. As I walked down the massive marble staircase, Simon and Griot came through the front door. "Where's Arturo?" I asked. "He's taking his team to the west side of the property to set up watch there. Griot is going to take his team to the east, and I'll take mine to the north." I nodded at Simon's words. "Good. Did you guys get enough food for yourselves and your teams?" "Oh yes," Griot said. "My Belle took care of us. She had everything prepared." I smiled. Yeah, my Belle was a lifesaver. She had been helping me plan this getaway for weeks. "Okay, we're gonna head out. The house is all yours." Simon looked at me. "Enjoy this time." 'Cause the general, he didn't have to say any more. I already knew. "Yes, it's only just begun," I told him. He exhaled, nodding his head. "If tonight is all we have, then don't spend it worrying about what can't be changed," the wise older warrior said. Both Simon and I looked at him. He was right. If tonight is all we have, then why waste it worrying? He slapped Simon on the back. "Let's leave them to it then." Simon nodded, and together they walked out the door to set up watch in their wing of the property. Yeah, y'all heard me. I said wing. This place had been designed after an old medieval castle, and it had towers. Simon and I had stumbled upon it on our way back to Father in the compound years ago. We were amazed because we lived right next door to this when we were children, and we never knew it existed. Whoever lived here must have not survived the flare. There had been no traces of their bodies. No doubt if they had died, the blood flames would have gotten to them before their blood could even turn cold. Strangely, there were no pictures on the wall, or even a painting of a family member. Nothing to give us a clue as to who lived here. We had stayed the night here because my Belle was tired and malnourished, so traveling with her had been slow, and I had fallen in love with this place. It was like a fairy tale castle. I would have set up shop here, but it wasn't enforced like the compound. There was no walls to keep the bad guys away, just a chain-linked fence. The good thing was that nature had grown up around the gate, hiding the place. If you didn't know it was here, you would miss it. This had become something of a refuge for me over the years. Although it had been a while since I had been able to come, my duties at the compound before Dawid had showed up kept me very busy, way too busy for a vacation day. When Eugene had come to stay with us at the compound, I had brought him here one day, and I asked him if he could build a generator for me. And he had. It's not as strong as the one at the compound, quite naturally. Father has spared no expense for his state-of-the-art fallout facilities. However, Eugene was able to build one that could supply power to a few rooms at a time. Anyway, this weekend Dawid and I would have the main house to ourselves. After securing everything and unpacking our food, I gathered a few candles and made my way back upstairs. I settled for taking a cold shower, not wanting to waste energy. Then I wrapped my peach scarf around me in a country-made style. Dawid had not moved. He still lay in the same spot. I slid into bed next to him, burrowing under his big warm body. Moments later, I was asleep. The next day was real slow motion. Dawid was still out, so I spent most of the day reading my scriptures and praying. I couldn't get that look he had given me after he killed that imposter out of my mind. What did it mean? And why did it make me feel so bad? I pondered on that question throughout the Shabbat. That evening, I was still pondering when I walked out to the balcony of the main bedroom to take in the spectacular view of the moon. It was huge, and there was a dark cloud sweeping across the middle of it. It looked as if it had been drawn with a painter's brush. I exhaled. A movement to the left made me reach for my gun. Preacher. The preacher was perched upon the stone rail of the balcony, reminding me of the way that Dawid perched up on the wall of the compound. I resheathed my gun in my holster. Seeing him perched up on that rail like this also reminded me of something I had thought I saw yesterday while Gabriel and Luke was carrying Dawid out of the bed of the truck. High up in the tall tree that overlooked this castle, standing on a limb, was the preacher. He stood with incredible balance watching us. The wind blew his duster around him. At first, he didn't look human, standing high up in that tree like that. His hat cast a dark shadow over his face. At the time, I thought that maybe my mind was playing tricks on me due to the strenuous day of activities. Now seeing him perched up on this rail, it let me know that my eyes had not lied. Slowly I approached him. He stared off into the night. I rubbed my arms, warming them. The breeze felt good, but it was a little brisk. "How is Dawid?" he asked, his deep voice quiet in the night. "He's resting." He slightly nodded his head, acknowledging that he heard me. I was glad he was here. With Dawid out cold and not able to explain to me what that look may have meant, I felt lost. "Ask your question, Bob." For a minute, I stared at the back of his head, surprised. How in the world could the preacher read minds? He chuckled, shaking his head. "No, I'm not a mind reader." "Then how do you know what I'm thinking?" He exhaled. "There isn't much I haven't seen many times before," was his only explanation for reading my mind. The preacher had to be the world's biggest unsolved mystery. I cleared my throat, suddenly afraid to ask my question, because I was afraid of the answer. Did I do something wrong?" Is he still with me? My voice was barely over a whisper. I prayed he understood that the he I was talking about was not Dawid. He turned to look at me for the first time. His dark gaze seemed more than anything you can imagine. Why would you assume he's not? I looked away from him and stared out into the beautiful night sky. I felt ashamed, and I didn't know why. It was the way those eyes, Dawid, looked at me. Or at least, it wasn't Dawid that looked at me, was it? It was quiet for a moment. My eyes came back to his, and he shook his head. No, Bot, it wasn't. Oh, wow. Him confirming that made it so much worse. When he looked at me, I told him. It was as if he was disappointed in me. What did I do wrong, preacher? He turned to look back out at the night. All demons are not created equal. There are some that are stronger, faster, and more cunning than others. Yesterday, you faced two very strong demons, and you were defeated by both. He was so strong. I tried to fight him. We all did. Only Dawid was able to defeat him. He chuckled. Believe it or not, he was the weaker of the two demons you faced yesterday. Had you defeated the stronger, you would have defeated the weaker. Learn the meaning of this parable, for it was written, one does not put new wine into old wineskins, or else the wineskins burst, and the wine is spilled, and the wineskins are ruined. But put the new wine into fresh wineskins, and both are preserved. I opened my mouth to ask him to explain what the parable meant, and what it had to do with me, but he held up his hand. He's awake. Turning, I looked back into the room. Dawid still lay where the Akim had put him. I frowned and turned back to the preacher, but he was gone. I looked over the rail to the ground below, but it was nothing there except for the old stone fountain that probably had once been very beautiful, but was now just a crumbling ruin. Slowly, I walked back into the room, wondering why the preacher had just lied to me. But then Dawid's big, strong body shot straight up out of the bed, scaring the heck out of me. Pop! He yelled, looking around the room. I put my hand on my chest. Dag it. Sometime he moved unbelievably fast. Pop! He held up his hands, looking at them. They shook slightly, and my heart broke for him. He was still seeing the imposter's blood on them, although there was nothing there. Dawid, I whispered, walking to him. His tortured eyes came up to mine, and there were tears in them. My dad, I killed. I shook my head at him. It wasn't him, my heart. Remember, it was the imposter, a clone. The general had sent in a clone. He stared at me for a moment as his mind comprehended that information. He sat down hard on the bed, clutching his head with both of his hands, rocking back and forth. I went to him and I wrapped my arms around him. He pressed his face in my stomach, wrapping his strong arms around my waist, pulling me close. Ah! His muffled cry came from my stomach. I squeezed him tighter. He was in pain. I could feel it radiating through his tense body. He grieved for his father. I don't know what it meant that the general was able to clone Dawid's dad, but I did know that I was going to kill him. He had crossed the line. For what he had done to me, I could have walked away from. But for what he had done to Dawid, he had to die for. Shh, baby. It's okay. I rubbed my hands through his locks, massaging his scalp. I needed to make him feel better. And I wasn't ashamed to say that I knew one thing for sure. that would make him feel better, and I was not above using it. I didn't care. I didn't like seeing him in this kind of pain. It was time to get his mind focused on other things. I went down to my knees in front of him and gently palmed his face with both of my hands. I love you, I told him, looking him directly in his beautiful russet gaze that widened slightly with my declaration, so that he'll know I spoke the truth. I love you so much. I kissed him on his forehead, slowly and very deliberately. I love you. I kissed him on the tip of his nose. I could feel some of the tension leaving his body as his grief was getting pushed to the side by his awakening lust. I ran my hands through his locks in a way that I knew he liked. Hey, don't judge me, y'all, for distracting him this way. I was desperate. I didn't like seeing him hurt. I love you, I whispered huskily in his ear before I gently and quite indecently kissed him on his cheek underneath his ear. I couldn't help but smile when his eyes that had just reflected pain began to reflect something else entirely different. I love you. I kissed his other cheek the same way. Each time I kissed him, I brushed my lips past his, intentionally avoiding his dangerous mouth. If it got involved, I would not be able to focus on all the things I had planned for him this evening. Tonight I was going to cater to my man, and I was going to show him how much I needed him and I appreciated him. I love you. I kissed his chin just underneath his bottom lip. By this time, he is moving his head trying to catch my lips with his. I laughed and I danced out of his arms when he got frustrated and reached for me trying to trap me for his kisses. Beauty, this is not the time to be trying to tease a brother. Come here, girl. The tortured look was back in his eyes, but this time for a different reason. He sounded as if he was in physical pain. Mister, no rushing. We have a whole evening to get to that. I have a few other surprises for you first. He shook his head, his hunger awake and wanting. Perfect. No, baby. No, I don't need no more surprises. Just come over here and get in this bed, and you'll make me the world's happiest man. I threw back my head and laughed at him. I don't think so, buddy. I turned and I began to sashay away to my first surprise. I put some extra sway in my hips. When I looked over my shoulder to see if he was watching, I was pleased to see that his eyes drank up my hips. I used my finger and I beckoned for him to follow me. And like a tiger stalking his prey, he rose from the bed and followed behind me. I led him down the hall to a very special room. It was one of the reasons why I fell in love with this place in the first place. The architects had modeled it to look like the famous hot springs. They had even managed to tap into the spring itself so that its healing waters flowed down the imitation mountain that had been built into the wall. Yesterday before Shabbat, while Dawid slept, I cleaned the small pool that didn't look like a pool at all but a natural-made spring, and I opened the valve so that the water could fill up the pool. About an hour ago, I lit candles that I had positioned around the room, casting it in a warm glow. The water flowing down the imitation rocks sounded like a bubbling brook. Dawid came into the room and his eyes widened in surprise as he looked around. Yes, surprise number 1, a success. Now it was time for surprise number 2. I reached up and I undid the knot in my scarf, letting it slide down my body. As if drawn by a magnet, his eyes came to me. I forced myself to stand there as his hungry gaze raked over my body. And then slowly I walked down the steps, swaying my hips as I went to get into the warm, healing water. Once in, I used my finger to beckon for him to join me, an inviting smile on my face. He stood there for only a moment, taking in everything, looking so good wearing only his pajama pants. His strong, muscled, ruddy chest gleamed in the candlelight, and then a wolfish smile spread across his face before he quickly stepped out of his pants and joined me in the water. "Wow," he said as he felt the warm mineral water envelop his body. He looked up at me. "How is this possible? Isn't it wonderful? This comes from the hot springs. It's known for its warm, healing mineral water." I cried, so glad he liked it. "Thank you, baby," he said before pulling me into a hug. Mr. Man thought he was slick though. Trust me when I tell y'all, this brother had one thing on his mind, but now was not the time. I pulled away from him yet again. "Here, come sit down," I told him. "I don't want to sit down. I want you. Now." He rasped my ear, pulling my body back against his. I shook my head laughing because he was kissing me under my ear in that place that he knew tickled me. "Dawid, stop. I'm serious. Sit," I screeched, pushing at his big shoulder. This brother could be real aggressive if he was in a certain mindset. "D, how you playing like this? Girl, you know it's been 40 years since I made love to my beautiful wife. Now you standing here looking so good you got my mouth watering. And you telling me I can't have it? Come on, babe. Look, I'm gonna die right now if you don't let me make love to you." He pleaded. I put my hand on my hip. No, this Negro didn't just tell me he was gonna die if he didn't get it. And then he had the nerve to poke out his bottom lip, hitting me with the puppy dog look. Cracking up, I shook my head at him. You'll be alright. Sit." I pointed to the built-in seat that was in the center of the pool. He looked at me as if I was the world's biggest villain before he grudgingly sat. "Fine. If I drop dead, just look out the Yafa for me." I laughed. He ought to be ashamed of himself. Sometimes my big strong warrior can act like a little boy. I walked to the side of the pool to get my shampoo. Then I came back and sat on the step behind him. "Lay back," I told him, guiding his head to rest in my lap. He still scowled, but he lay back into the water so that his long brown locks were submerged. I put shampoo in my hand and I began to run my fingers through his hair, scrubbing the locks and massaging his scalp. Beauty, that feels amazing," he moaned. I smiled down at him. "Good. I want to make you feel amazing, because you are amazing." Y'all, this man was looking at me with those bedroom eyes of his, and I'm telling you, I was having a hard time concentrating. "So, you not mad at me anymore?" I bit my lip and shook my head. "Nope." He softly chuckled. "Oh yeah? Well, why to change your heart?" Outside of the fact that you saved my life yesterday, I realized that maybe I should try to see things through your eyes for a change. And when I did, I saw all the responsibilities you carried on your shoulders. I took a bowl that I had placed by the pool and I began to gently rinse his hair. He was so relaxed that when he blinked, it was slow enough for him to look sleepy. And then I realized that I had been selfish. When I met you, I saw an opportunity to finally be free of what I had come to look at as a burden. A burden that I was all too happy to dump at your feet. Never once did you complain. You just picked it up and added to what you were already carrying. No problem. I chuckled without humor. You even picked me up with all my problems and my issues, and tears came to my eyes. And you healed me with your love. You introduced me to Yah and Yehoshua. You brought Yafa to me. You brought life with you. My tears were flowing now. I reached up and I swiped at my eyes. Without you, Dawid, I would still be dead. He reached up and gently wiped away my tears. I thought warrior women didn't cry. I laughed through my tears. Not true. When no one's around, warrior women cry all the time. Okay, so I asked, gaining control of my emotions. You see, this wasn't about me. This was about him. He always comforted me. Always. Tonight, I was going to comfort him. Is there anything else you can do besides embody Yah's spirit, defeat every mortal man and probably a good number of immortal ones, turn out to be the world's most awesome dad, heal the broken, sing, master the art of love? I shook my eyebrows at him, causing him to chuckle. Oh, and I almost forgot. Put together a mean pot of goulash. Did I miss anything? He got this fake look of modesty on his face before putting his hand to his chest. I am amazing, aren't I? I raised my eyebrow at him and he chuckled. Nah, I'm just joking. I'm nothing but a tool to be used however Yah sees fit. Okay, tool. Did I miss anything? He grinned. I can speak in tongues. I arched my eyebrow at him. Excuse me? Visions of people spasming out in church came to mind. This made him laugh. Not what you're thinking. Let's just say I never came across a language that I didn't understand. My mouth fell open. That explains so much. He communicated flawlessly with everybody at the compound, and we had a great mix of people there. How is that possible? How is it possible you have these abilities? The military has been experimenting with the soldiers forever, and they still haven't produced one that can hold a candle to you. I asked as I soaked his hair up for the second time. He shrugged. I don't know. I was born this way. For as far back as I can remember, I could hear everything that happened around me. When I was a baby, I would just listen. At one point though, I remember it becoming too much. And then the man with no shoes taught me how to compartmentalize what I hear so that I don't go crazy. The man with no shoes? He nodded. Why do you call him that? He smiled up at me. 'Cause he doesn't wear shoes, baby. Ever? He shook his head. I never saw him in any. Okay, so we'll explore that at a later date. I rinsed his hair one more time. I just think you are amazing, and I'm so glad you chose me. Although I don't know why, I'm old. He brought his finger to my mouth, stopping my tirade. And then he sat up in the water, turning on the seat so that he was facing me. I felt small in front of him. He took my hand in his. I have another gift. He spoke quietly, his voice soothing like the bubbling sound the imitation spring was making. I lifted one side of my mouth in a grin. Oh yeah? And what's that? I have a gift for being able to spot out the finer things in life. I held back my head and laughed. Okay, so what you gonna tell me? I'm like fine wine? He grinned at me. The finest? The sparkle in his eye was dangerous. And he began to wrap his hand up my arm. I'm so thirsty. At this point, I'll give just about anything for a taste of that wine. It's been so long. He did this little thing where he ran his tongue over his bottom lip. That, coupled with those eyes of his, I was losing ground. What about dinner? I asked, when he put his hands on my hips and began to pull me towards him. Dinner can wait, baby. I'm only hungry for one thing right now. He slid me on his lap and kissed the wrist he still held. Don't you miss me, beauty? He whispered, before kissing me on my neck just underneath my ear. I moaned, yes. Do you miss when I do this? He took my earlobe in his mouth. Goodness, yes. And what about this? Do you miss this? He balled his hand up in my hair that I had put up in a bun so that it wouldn't get wet, and took my lips with his. Remember now, I told y'all how dangerous his kiss was. I was lost. My body did miss his, and it wanted it right now. What about this, baby? Did you miss this? Okay. Let me put it like this. We didn't make it out the pool for about another 2 hours. Eventually, I made it down to the kitchen to prepare our meal. I lit some candles so that I was not using too much energy. The stove pulled a lot by itself, and I didn't want to burn out the generator. As I was stirring the pot, rewarming the stew my Belle had made, 2 strong arms came around my waist. That smells good. His long wet locks touched my arm and I squeaked because they were cold. Dawid, dry your hair, it's cold. Oh, my fault, he said, turning like he was gonna go and dry his hair. But then at the last minute he turned back and began to shake his locks like Bob Marley, causing water to sprinkle all over me. I laughed trying to stop him, but somehow he managed to get me up on the counter with my legs spread and his big body wedged between them. And those dead lips of his was doing that thing they do by distracting me. He stopped and looked at me, and then the smile left his face. Thank you, baby. Thank you for this. You really helped me get through a tough time. Seeing a replica of my pops lying dead with his blood on my hands was enough to shatter my mind. I wrapped my arms around his neck, resting my forehead against his. I wouldn't have made it through the battle without you. When I was weak, you were strong. I smiled at his words, remembering what he had said to me yesterday on the training field. I had wondered how I could assist a man that didn't have any weaknesses. He said he had, but I didn't believe him at the time. Dawid was like any man I had ever known, but he was human. And yeah, he had weaknesses, and I had been there for him, and I felt good. Then I remembered those eyes. What? He asked when he saw the smile leave my face. I slid down off the counter and I turned off the stove. I reached for some bowls, but Dawid took my hand and led me to the couch. He sat down and pulled me in his lap. What? He asked again. I used my finger and traced the veins in his muscled arms that was wrapped around my waist. I didn't know how to talk to him about what was going on in my mind. I didn't know how to tell him that I feared Yah has rejected me. Be brave, beauty, and tell me what's going on in that head of yours. His deep voice was soothing, but maybe he won't want me anymore when he finds out. Speak, Deborah, he demanded, losing patience with me. When you were fighting the imposter, you looked at me disappointingly. I think that maybe Yah is upset with me. He's displeased with me, and I don't know why. When I talked to the preacher about it, he said that I fought 2 strong demons, and I was defeated by both. He said that the imposter was the weaker of the 2, but I was only defeated by the imposter. I don't know. Maybe I think Yah has rejected me. I whispered the last. Dawid lifted me on his lap, turning me so that I straddled him. He leaned back on the couch, resting his head against it, and looked up at me. First of all, Yah has not rejected you. He's not fickle like man. It is possible for him to be disappointed in you though, but that's okay. The fact that you're bothered like this and you're worrying is a great sign that you're going to find out why he's disappointing you and do something about it. What if I can't fix it? I looked down at his belly button. He used his hand and lifted my chin so that I was looking in his eyes. Pray about it, babe. Yah will not leave you alone. He has sent the helper, and the helper is there for us. Always have been. I nodded. Believe, beauty. Yah rewards those who believe in him no matter what they're up against. You have to believe that Yah will bring you through. He's a jealous power, and he gives his praise to no one else. And he wants his people to lean on no one else. So trust no one else. He picked up my hand and brought it to his lips. Not even yourself. Only Yah. Not even myself. Something about his words gave me chills. But before I could ponder on them any further, Dawid sat straight up, looking up at the ceiling, moving his head as if he was listening to something. Moments later, a loud boom rattled the ground. Simon burst through the front door, a stricken look on his face. The compound is under attack.